IVM.
कृपया ध्यान दीजिए, the language used on the podcast may not be fit for consumption. We warn you, tread carefully. But listen yaar, don't be so conservative. We've got a huge guest. You'll think कि अपना budget पे इतना बड़ा guest कैसे आ गया? People will not even believe it. I don't know how. Explaining this is going to take a long time, so I won't get into that. But I'll give you a hint about the guest. I'm going to start with a racist theory because racism prevalent all over the world. Let's be honest about that. You can't change it. We're against it, but it's there. And the racist theory is, growing up with a lot of Punjabis and meeting later on in my life Pakistanis also from that side of the border, from the same region, there's one fabulous quality that they have. And I'm saying this without disrespecting any other races and cultures. No one feeds you better than a Punjabi family. Either from this side or that side, it's no different. It's exactly the same. And having tasted friendships of Pakistanis and of course having so many Punjabi classmates and schoolmates and all across India, working with them, colleagues, etc., I can tell you enter the Punjabi household and the mother will say, "Kuch loge?" and inko kuch khila do, and that kind of language, and immediately you're fed. And fat boys like me with fat cheeks get fatter. So it's just a fabulous stereotype, which is actually true, and I love it. And I think we should not deny it. Sometimes racist theories do work and are there.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcast website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
So let me bring to you from New York, live from New York as we speak. It is about 11 o'clock in the night on a Monday night, Tuesday night. Sorry, brother. Medication ke baad, I can't remember anything in the week. It is the one and only. He's a household name. He's a huge iconic figure. He's arguably one of the most famous Asians abroad. The one and only Vikas Khanna. Ting, ting, ting. Hi, Vikas.
Hi.
Let me tell you, you are so famous in India that our Prime Minister uses your name in every speech. When he talks about Hindustan ka Vikas, he means you. He means you. He's clearly talking only about you because he keeps repeating it. First and foremost, I'm going to apologize because I'm going to have to apologize throughout the show. I talk too fast. So you have to disregard that. And at any point you want me to repeat or not repeat, you can do that. But today, I'm not going to talk about all your achievements, which are so many. I want to focus on the book that you've released, which is very interesting. I work out actually with a Punjabi kid. Now, I'm saying kid, but we are all now not kids from any angle. But we grew up together, so I say the word kid. And I was discussing the title Barkat. And I was saying, I'm going to talk to Vikas Khanna and all. And he was explaining to me the actual English translation, the best translation apparently is abundance. Is this correct?
It's correct, but it's like seva. What does seva mean? Service, right? A translation. Sometimes
Correct.
you don't do full justice to the word with translation because we come from a very rich, eclectic vocabulary. So it becomes very difficult to translate some words. One word which I always found difficult was the word seva because it's truly not service. And you can't say free service because seva is not much beyond that.
It's like Samaj ka seva without saying that because you're helping the society or the people without actually saying that. Seva alone says that in a sense.
Seva could be just a broader sense of the word in a spiritual context. Could be seva in your house also, not just the seva to strangers. But Barkat is still, again, we had so much of issues of translating this word because abundance doesn't do justice to the word. Because I remember my grandmother using the phrase a lot, ki niyata nu barkata hundi hai, which means that intentions are the ones which get blessed with abundance, not even the action sometimes. It's your intentions which are way. So now if I just use the word abundance, people लगता है कि थोड़ा सा injustice हो गया word के साथ. Abundance, full of love, blessings. I think wholesomeness is also a word which comes to this.
Okay.
Matlab, may your life be very whole. That is also one of the translations.
Fair enough, but I'm just trying to understand because this Paloman was telling me that for a Punjabi household, and I think it's spot on with whatever my experiences are, you can never run short of food. That whole concept of if anybody comes over, I don't think in the history of Punjab, any Punjabi family, rich, poor, middle class, no one runs out of food for the mehman or for the person in the house. I thought maybe the Barkat word comes from there because it's always about, as you said, seva, but it's always about whatever happens, there will be that abundance or extra surplus of food at the end of the meal. Where everybody, not in a bad way, in a like a respectful way. Yeah.
But having one of the people who've traveled way too much in India, nooks and corners, I feel that's very Indian DNA. of sharing. It's a very Indian cultural DNA which has been embedded in our brains. You know, when we go to Americans' homes, and I remember first time we went to
Racism, Vikas! Racism! Continue.
not racism, you know, it's a very, very, very interesting subject. We went to someone's house. We had to sign a catering contract. And I asked for water, and the lady said, "Oh, why don't you drink outside?" You know, which is a very general thing. And it was very strange. And I had an American manager. I said, "Isn't that strange? When you go to an Indian home, they'll feed you and feed you." Because he had been to my Indian friends' homes in New Jersey or New York. And she says, "Here we are very scared of the lawsuits. Trust me.
What?
Nobody wants to feed you because you can walk out. You can walk out of the house and say that they poisoned me, they put some medicine in it, I'm not feeling good, this must be intentional," and you can actually sue them. And so that is where also the fear comes a lot.
Wow.
So it's not just disconnecting the whole thing कि यहाँ पे को पूछ किसके घर जाओ, people don't serve. यहाँ पे there's also liability of service.
What do you think? Such a distrusting society कि guest पे शक होता है कि you've come with bad intentions. Firstly, just thinking of the premise behind the thinking.
But it's a cultural thing. It's a cultural thing. I'm not saying everything is good or black and white नहीं होता, but it's a cultural thing where people are very scared of okay, because you are liable now. And people also don't have the concept here of cooking at home. So सब कुछ बाहर से ही आता है, majority of the people, especially in the tri-state where I lived more than 21 years. So people don't want to serve something like that too. So you see that the hospitality is a very different vocabulary here.
Yeah, let's leave it there because there's lots of good stuff from Americans. I don't want to make this show into I was just being flippant about it, but theek hai. Let's go into the book straight away. Whatever I've gleaned from it, let's start with the lemon tree and the grandmother ka connect. Again, this is an Indian story. It's not just yours alone, I'm sure. A lot of people have the elders in the household who take over, have that kitchen ka culture, which then gets passed over, etc. So just a quick idea about the lemon tree ka significance kya hai isme?
So we used to have a lemon tree in the back of the house. So you get lemons twice. एक तो summer होते हैं, एक winter lemon. So it was always something which was very sacred to her, that lemon tree. And I still feel very distressed because I had to cut it down when we started a small business in the back of the house because the tree was right at the entrance. और नींबू के पेड़ पे कांटे होते हैं, so it's always filled with thorns. In the summer, you also get a lot of bees and wasps. So you have to be very careful that you're not serving around that tree. But it was just so brilliant. And I've never seen a tree like this. We just kept giving and giving. And she would make these big, big jars of achar. And it was insane. The citrus taste, I've never had that kind of flavor anywhere in my life. That taste of citrus. So मुझे लगता है बहुत एक significant चीज थी. एक पेड़ था जिसने हमेशा दिया ही दिया है. So it stood to me like somebody who's an elder at home who gives shade, but they're always giving. So it is not taking from you. It's always adding to you or giving to you. So मुझे वो trees का significance अपनी life में अपने elders के साथ, ancestors के साथ बहुत लगता था हमेशा.
Wow, so it's almost like an extra relative, a senior figure, which was guiding you also as you were growing up. But let's cut to the grandmother ka role because from what I gathered, so she is the first influence in terms of interest in this culinary arts and all that, or was there somebody else?
My mom never cooked, so it was always my grandmom because she was so amazing and she had such an influence in the house because it was not just feeding us; it was what she did with the food. कि गाय भी आती थी पूरे टाइम पे गली में उनको गाय को भी खाना देना है. We used to have some distant relatives we didn't even know related to them. They used to come. और घर में, it was so interesting that as we grew up and we started living in different cities, so we'll always connect to people and say, "अरे आपके घर तो we used to stay for months." Because your grandmother used to feed us. Because what used to happen is the extended family used to go to Bombay or Delhi in big metropolitans. So raising a child is difficult as compared to a small town like Amritsar because it's very close-knit society. So she raised, I don't know how many thousands of kids. That's what I used to say. And it's a true Annapurna in my life. To witness that kind of generosity through her was very important to me.
And I think then you speak about the eating together philosophy, which comes from the grandmom's culture and let's say Punjabi culture in general. The eating together philosophy plays a very important role.
It's a fact that we were never allowed to talk about any politics on the table or no money issues, no success issues, no failure issues. Because she's saying that Ma Annapurna is beyond all that. So I really think that is important. And at that time, it might be irritating to many people because television had just boomed in India. I'm talking about 80s. And many of us wanted to see a show at 9 o'clock or something at 9 o'clock. But our dinner time was 9 o'clock. And she says that, please remember that I might not be here forever to feed you. The television shows will be here forever. And I think that was so interesting. Now, as I grow old, I understand that she was not just serving food. She was giving us stability through food. There was certain routine which becomes like a ritual, which helps you in your downtime. So I feel very fortunate to be raised by grandparents.
Amazing how wise some of our elders have been when you look back. Because living a modern philosophy or modern culture, T20 culture, I like to call it, nobody wants to really eat with the family anymore. सबके पास laptop है या phone है और कोई show पे खुला है and you're just, I mean, it happens in my house, it happens in my friends' houses. The whole idea of the collective family eating, which now, as you mentioned, or rather how your grandmother has mentioned, it keeps the society together, and you don't realize that how that slowly just you disappear from that if you don't do that small event of dinner together at 9 o'clock. It's amazing. I love these stories. Then we go into the 1971. Let's go back to the backdrop of everything, which is where you were born. You and me are both born during 1971 war.
Welcome to the 50s club.
Sorry?
Welcome to the 50s club.
हाँ 50 यार क्यों बताया यार they wouldn't have even counted. We were just quiet about this. Yeah, this is the year it happens, right? So yeah, let's go back to 71 a little bit, because that plays a big role in your early years, because you were the repercussions of being a Punjabi from the border city of Amritsar, and what your parents and all grandparents have gone through. So just take us a little bit through that.
So we used to hear a lot of stories, partition, which is like most of the people who lived because Lahore and Amritsar were the sister cities. So we used to hear so many stories of partition, that how during the partition, some of the Muslim friends of the family, they decided to go to Pakistan, but they were waiting for things to calm down. There were riots everywhere. So they all stayed in our houses, and my grandmother says that we protected the girls and daughters and daughter-in-laws. And she says that they had very strong connection with Lahore because of being raised in two cities. And when I had to name my banquets, first business which I ever started was called Lawrence Garden. Even now, my company in America is registered under Lawrence Garden, because that was a garden which is like Central Park of Lahore. But now it's called Bagh Jinnah. And that is where my grandmother and grandfather and their friends used to meet. And it is a beautiful garden in Lahore. But born during the war also has a very different effect on your celebration of your birth. Because there's so much of turmoil. Hospitals are filled with all the casualties and what's going on in the city at that time. And that time, most of the kids were delivered at home, but still there was so much of anxiety in the air, when you're a city which is the forefront of the war. So to make even things worse, the lady who helped me deliver, she said that, the doctor, or what you call midwife, she said that this guy has strange feet and he might not be able to run ever. And mom looks at me and she says, oh my God, this is like a real disability. But this time, with the backdrop of the war, there were so many more issues of scarcity and anxiety which had to be taken care of. But my mom said, no. The doctor said that, you need to take him to Delhi because nobody does operations for this here. So I was just a week old and she took me in a train, like 10 days old or something. She took me in a train to Delhi. So everything is happening in the backdrop of a major war between India and Pakistan during that time.
Yeah, but it's amazing going back to partition before that, of course, 47, and you're mentioning all that. These stories don't come out enough. The stories of the Punjabi families looking after, well, Punjabi on both sides, Hindu families and Sikh families looking after Muslim families, and Muslim families looking after Sikh and Hindu families. I wish they would tell more stories of this, because in the world we live in, we need more positive stories. And there are so many nice stories out there, which we'll come back to, because I think ultimately what you do is so secular, feeding people and feeding all kinds of cultures and making people happy. So let's move to the Manipal. Now we'll go a little fast forward here. After the Delhi operation was successful and all that, then the young Vikas goes to Manipal. This, I think, is 1991.
Okay.
What happened there?
So I did not know about hotel management colleges and all, because my brother was becoming an engineer. So like run of the mill, my parents said
50% of all middle class India, yes.
And it's also, I got very fortunate because I had started my catering business at a much earlier age, before I had passed my +1. So there was less anxiety of the family to understand that, I'll be able to do this, because they understood that my passion was really feeding people. But there's always a thing about uncertainty of this profession. You're talking about 91. So many people do not approve of this idea कि क्या बनेगा, बावर्ची बनेगा, वो तो खाना तो कोई भी बना लेता है, खाना तो कोई.
Why does bawarchi have this negative connotation here? Bawarchi and hajam, these are the words which are not used with respect for some reason, I feel.
I think you're right. You know what I should do? I should do my Twitter handle as Bawarchi. I'm going to put that, a hashtag Bawarchi. That we should stop understanding that this is a negative connotation. These are the very skilled people who actually take care of you and they know how to cook. I'm going to put that. Thank you for pointing that out.
There you go. Copyright Cyrus Brocha, circa 2021 December. But going back to the Manipal years, and you were catering college, huh?
So, because if you look at the most of the hotel management colleges during that time, they only focused on big town kids, Delhi, Bombay, Kolkata, Chennai, Bangalore, because they were fluent in English, they had more presentable, they had more awareness, and there was no internet. So these kids knew more about what was happening in the outer world or in big hotels. And here somebody comes from Amritsar who's never even had a continental dish in his life. So there's always a disconnect, and they know it. They are aware of it, that the small town kids have their own issues and their own problems. And basic problem is that they feel that they're not aware enough. So I had this thing of, once I told somebody that it's amazing that in a country like India, we are judged on speaking a foreign language, how well we speak it. And I said, if that is the competition, I will learn that too. I will have to express myself in English. But college was a very strange place because the getting admission there was a tough game. But I had my little business, so I kept flaunting about that I make money. Aunties really kill me in kitty parties, and sometimes they don't even pay me. And how much you charge? 20 rupees I charge. And
Or did they pay? Did they pay you in kind?
No, they
वो तो नहीं है किताब में, वो तो नहीं है. Non-veg तो बहुत है, मगर वो तो नहीं है.
Women will hold my ears and says कि तेरे को छोले पता नहीं कैसे बनाते हैं, and I'm like, oh my god, because it's a true fact. You're such a kid. You're talking about 16-year-old kid who's running a business with his mom and grandmom. They will come and they will come and attack you first because you are the one they can speak to. Waiter ka kaam bhi, safaiyan bhi, sab kuch. But I was flaunting that, and then the principal noticed something in me, and they rejected me and they said, "Okay, beta, you're gonna have a big ace." We didn't have air conditioning in our banquets, so that was a big thing which crushed me. We didn't have a generator. And, we know that light outs and all those things, but the principal noticed something and he says, I can teach everything to these students who are coming from big cities and they have so much of exposure. They're all talking about their foreign trips. You've never sat in a plane. And he says that I can't teach them passion. It will be a mistake for the college. It will be they will really lose on something if this university doesn't take you. So he's the one, Mr. Sundesh Prasad, our principal, he's the one who got me in the college, because it will be loss of our entire fraternity not to give you a supporting hand right now, because it's a very rare story that somebody learned how to cook from Golden Temple, starts his own business. 20 rupees business doesn't matter. It's that how he's so interested in it. And where we have other kids who are talking about multi-billion-dollar hotels which their fathers own. And here you just have a dream of opening an air-conditioned restaurant. And he says, you're going to do that. And I'm still thankful to Mr. Sundesh Prasad for looking something in me which everybody has totally dismissed.
Yes, what is the doha which goes Guru Gobind dono khade kitte lagu paye, if I remember correctly. So obviously already we can see the grandmother's role is so important, the family's role is so important, and Mr. Prasad is the next guy. Again, this is a shout out to all those educators out there who don't get enough respect, who are able to see where the talent is and then disregard where you come from and just see talent and say, okay, this is the guy, let's back him. So I think we should do a shout out to these guys, because it happens in sport, it happens in the fine arts like yourself, and those guys are unrecognized actually. 40 years in the business, nobody remembers that if he didn't see Vikas Khanna for who he was, maybe Vikas would have landed up going back to engineering or something. Who knows what would have happened 1-2 saal down the line.
I would have been sitting in my banquets and running totally.
Yeah. And dealing with cheap clients like myself who was saying, or come karo. Welcome to India. Okay. Leela years. So anyway, let's go forward here again. So things go well. You finish the course. You're now both formal, informally talented, and formally. First time a guest has left while I'm talking, but not the last for sure. He will come back. Bring the doggy, please.
My doggy is meeting me after.
No, please bring the doggy. We are very dog friendly here. Yeah.
It's okay.
Listen, we allow right-wing policies and politics on this show. So you can imagine doggies are very safe. No problem whatsoever. Going back, the Leela years, 94 to 96. I know this is bring back all the memories for you, but now the structure happened. Until now, it's like an informal, you remind me of a young Sachin Tendulkar or something. Everywhere, there's a lot of talent, a lot of passion, but there's no formal structuring. Although you started a business on your own, which is, who can train you better than doing your own business as a teenager? However, now Leela years, where you enter the business end of the whole thing, the formal business of catering and cooking and all that.
I did work a lot in different hotels before I got to Leela. So I was in Kathmandu for a few months at Solti Broys. So, when as Steve Jobs says, you got to look your life connecting the dots backwards. So working at Taj, in Taj, city of Taj Mahal in Agra at Mughal Sheraton. I worked in Delhi at Taj. I worked in Bombay at Sea Rock Sheraton. So there was a whole thing which was Many kids opted to go back home. I did not go back home because I was like, I'm never going to get a chance again. And I'm only getting the training because I have a student ID from the college. So I must observe and absorb as much as I can. That truly helped me because I was very restricted to Punjabi food. So मुझे पता नहीं था उसके अलावा क्या दुनिया में क्या होता है. So for me to explore that, the Maharashtrian and Gujarati and the Parsi cuisines was all happening because I was at Sea Rock Sheraton. And when I look back now that, and my obsession with the whole cuisine or the Pahadi cuisine of Nepal, which later became one of my biggest books, it all happened because I went to Kolkata and there was no hotel which would give me job. So I took a bus from Siliguri and went to Nepal. Like such a free bird. Now I look at it, I said, oh my God, I was not even planning these things. So it's actually looking backwards, which helped me to look at a job at Leela's because Bombay really fascinated me because I thought there was something so multicultural about Bombay and Mumbai, which polishes you in a different way. And it's a struggle living in Bombay. It's a real war, just existing and surviving in Bombay.
Yeah, it's a struggle for us who have houses here and born and bred here. So I can imagine what it is for the migrant who comes in. But you mentioned Sea Rock, and I'm thinking of my childhood, rather my teenage years. It was this big place for the film stars and all. So did you ever interact with any of the big stars of the 80s?
As a trainee, I was working in the room service. So we would do the basic room service tray setups and very basic cooking, early morning cooking, because that time the chefs were not there. But I was there during the riots in 92. So we were really short-staffed. So we were just a few people running the housekeeping service that time. So I met somebody last month and she said that, do you think there could be possibility that you were serving us food because they were stuck in the hotel during the riots? I said, there could be a possibility. The universe is very small if you look at it. So working in all these hotels actually, because now with the internet exposure, you can look at online that what cities eat, how different cultures eat and what they eat and how they cook. But for us, it was like going hands-on and learning things. So I think that really helped you to develop a much tighter culture understanding.
And along the way, you mentioned Pahadi, Parsi, Punjabi, Gujarati, Maharashtrian. You just kept learning. It wasn't like you preferred one cuisine over another. Wherever you're exposed, you just took it in.
मेरे को बहुत interesting लगा था because my biggest shock of my brain for Indian cooking came from Udupi, not from Punjab, because I thought everybody ate Punjabi food. It was in Manipal because I was the last student who got the admission in our batch, which was just an extra student they added. So we didn't have a room in the hostel in Manipal. So look at destiny, right? So if anybody knows about Udupi, they gave us this small lodging in Kalsanka. I still remember everything. And that is the best thing which happened to my entire career because there were local restaurants in people's homes. I could go and taste that. And that's the first time I'm actually having coconut in food, in savory food, because I thought coconut ka sirf laddu hi bante hain. Punjab mein to yahan pe naya bike aata hai to coconut todte hain. We had no idea about these things. So imagine your training started was destined to be the lowest in the classroom because there was a foundation happening for you. So Udupi really set up my foundation of diversity of Indian cooking, which got me so motivated, even now.
So I would always think that for any artist, and you're 100% an artist, you have some favorites and some non-favorites. But is it possible that you actually like everything? How does it work for someone who's, sophisticated palate and all that? I'm presuming कि हो तो सकता है कि you don't like this or you don't like that. But you seem to be taking in everything. Even in the book, there's no real mention of anything you don't like. So how does it work?
I don't like when somebody asks me, are you allergic to something? I said, absolutely yes. I'm extremely allergic to self-entitled people. I am so allergic. It breaks I don't say anything, but it breaks my heart. And people can tell that when I have too many self-entitled people around me, it reduces my mind. I just feel that. But in terms of cooking, no, that's never happened. My favorite cuisine is Bhutanese cuisine. It's not even Indian. Indian goes without saying, but Bhutan is really a wake-up call for my palate.
Really?
Yeah, Bhutan.
Not a very well-known cuisine.
It's not a. When I was doing the first dinner for President Obama, I did entire Bhutanese menu.
And they loved it?
It's okay. It was very acquired taste. So we couldn't serve exactly traditional stuff. We had to really modify so that, they use a lot of chilies. So we had to figure out a way that we had a lot of tastings before the dinner. So we really had to find a balance between authenticity and modernization. But Bhutan, maybe I went at the time when I was totally failed in America. Maybe I'm moving fast too much forward. I totally collapsed in the US, and that's when I went to hide in Bhutan. and I think it became my sanctuary of my rebirth. That's what I call Bhutan.
So first birth is the Udupi area. Second, first birth of the professional. Second birth, the second inning starts with Bhutan. It's a your play. This your whole world is connected to you in some way. If you look back in the book, it's it's all different geographical points which are coming together. It's almost like you're.
Risk-taking ability is just too crazy. It's maybe
Listen,
because people say
first and foremost, let's not deny your sheer talent and your charisma and your ability to communicate with food. Well, wanted to ask you one question because I'm sure as you became the star that you are today, all along you said as a teenager, those ladies will come and they will, criticize and correct and almost, chappal utha ke marte the and all that. But from there, how it would go when they meet Chef Vikas, now they will ask you for your advice on food and then they'll ask you to.
it might never happen in my lifetime. अभी भी आंटीज में अमृतसर जाता हूँ मुझे आके कोई अपनी अचार के
No, Vikas Khanna, no way.
and I
No
listen.
way.
And it's so amazing that you're constantly learning. I went this time and I had one of the winners from MasterChef. Imagine if I would block myself out. And she taught me one of the best dishes, which was meat ka halwa. And
A contestant.
yeah, she was a contestant MasterChef. She was really one of the favorites, Jyoti ji. So I went to Amritsar like much before pandemic, and she's talking about. She's saying, this was a dish. It suddenly struck me in Lahore. Also, I had a sweet dish made out of meat. So you blocking people out. There is always somebody to offer you something, and especially when people come to you, even in the flights, then they'll come to you. They'll always have some recipe to tell you. Do you know this dish? And I'm like, no. Can you explain me how? And I'll quickly take out my phone. I'll do a voice note, and I will do it. Yeah, it's so true. It is true. Especially my mom came from Multan side. So people who know that she came from that side. And if somebody is connected from there, they will tell me 10 dishes from there. And I'll quickly make voice notes and I'll find a way to cook them.
Wow. I guess that's another lesson from you about trying. I think all the famous great people of our times, they do have that in common that they acquire the knowledge till they die. They don't say that I'm the best in that sense, and they're always learning in a sense. So people listening, I'm not saying you'll be the next Vikas Khanna, but the way forward is that he reinvents himself by listening to other people who may just be strangers he never meets again, which is always a good thing, I feel. You should not meet people twice. We'll go a little down now. The community kitchens, we touched on that. 96 to 2000, you call your crucial period. Is there a particular reason?
So after my years at Leela, there was a certain taste I had developed of cooking. And when I went back to Punjab, I wanted to run my business again, my catering business, because my mom was running it. And it hurt me because, she was getting old and my grandmother was getting old. And some days I felt that, which is going to be a very big part of my next big project coming out, is that I felt that there was such a dearth of dignity when women are running hospitality business. That we have a big gap in our culture, and somebody has to call it out, because I saw my mom sometimes so disrespectfully being talked to because she was in the position of serving people. And when I saw that, I said, I need to come back to Amritsar. So I was doing very well at Leela's, and I came back, and 96 to 2000 was a point where my business just expanded in Amritsar. We had more than 100 people working for me, and we had catering happening all over Punjab till Delhi, and massive businesses. Like, you cannot imagine the kind of business I was doing, because I also brought in a new style of catering, of services and white club services, and because of the training of so many years in different hotels. But in 2000, my heart broke. Totally, my heart broke, and I felt I can never win at that point.
But because why is that? Sorry to interrupt. Why is that we have this again across India? This is not just in the north, where we disrespect the server. I'm just thinking what you're saying. Immediately comes to mind. It's the tone, not the language so much. Ki suno idhar aao, ye pila do, wo khila do. It's just the tone also, that where we seem to not show respect to the server, but which is across this pan India, I would feel. And I think that's also what you must have experienced to some extent. Not just the guests being demanding, but just being not friendly.
My perspective was more of the way people. Maybe I was so young, I never cared how people spoke to me and how they demanded things. For me, what hurt me was the way they spoke to my mom. Ki plate mein haddi hai, isko utha,
Which is even more.
Because she was involved.
Which is more difficult to understand, because as an elder figure, you'd expect them not to do that. But anyway, it is what it is. I don't think that's going to change.
It was a place which served alcohol, so it became also for me to understand some of the things that became very hard for me, and that's what I decided to go back to Amritsar. But when things didn't work out for me in 2000, even after doing so well and having such a successful business, making new houses, caterings, and new banquet spaces, and I felt that I was going to be incomplete and never be able to spread my wings, what I wanted to do as an artist. And that's when I decided I must experiment by taking my culture and my cuisine and trying my destiny in New York. That's happened in 2021 years ago.
Yeah, the Vikas Khanna story is where you cannot be controlled or contained to one area. That's for sure. I'm sure there's more to come. But before we're going to break, 2 points. I want people to read the book, get the book on your own. We're not trying to tell you everything. But 2 incidents, if you can lightly touch on. The James Beard house incident. I hope I got his name right because it sounded odd, but it is.
James Beard is called the father of American cuisine. And, he had a big legacy. He left a lot of money, created big trust. So they started this thing about James Beard Foundation on 12th Street in New York, that there's a place which he had a brownstone, which was brilliant because it gives the chefs to get a chance to showcase themselves. It was really amazing.
And so what was your exact relationship in that?
So James Beard House picks up chefs and they come to the James Beard Foundation, that's a place, and they cook. So it's a big honor because we had seen some of the biggest chefs' names in America or Europe to come there and cook. And I was at Salam Bombay at that time. It's a restaurant in downtown,
Famous,
in New York. And I was, this lady loved my cooking and everything. She said, why don't you come and cook at the Beard House? That's what they call it, Beard House. So I went there, and for the first time, when I went upstairs, you cook on the ground level. And when you go upstairs where everybody served the meal, after the 4 courses, I go upstairs and everybody stood up and applauded. This is the first time in my entire life.
What are you saying?
Yeah, first time people stood up and they applauded and says, this was one of the best Indian food they ever had. And I started crying. They gave me a mic to speak. I said, I can't speak anything. And I gave the mic back. I didn't say, and they give you an apron to sign after the dinner. And that apron had some of the biggest hero signatures, from Daniel Boulud to Eric Prepare to some of the people I've always looked up to in my career, and signing there. So I made a very small signature, not to disturb their signatures, not to override them. So it really it affected me to understand the potentiality, not the actuality of Indian cooking, which was very small, which was very bleak, where at that time we were just looked down upon six street chefs, mass cooking, clone cooking, templated menus. That's what everybody looked at you like that. But then came along some of the greatest chefs like Floyd Cardos and Suvir Saran and Madhur Jaffrey's influence and Chuli Sani's influence and Raji's influence. So I felt that I got a little easy. There were footprints where I had to walk. But still, people never looked up to Indian chefs of winners of Michelin stars or covers of magazine or Forbes covers. They never looked at Indian chefs. They didn't think that there was a potential here.
And this
James Beard House made me feel the potential of Indian cooking that day, 23rd August 2004, 9 p.m.
और उस घटना में we are looking at cosmopolitan mixed people coming to eat. This is not like desis living in the area who have come to eat this meal. It's a mix of cultures.
Yeah, this is extremely highly priced dinners.
Whoa.
So these are real connoisseurs who come for real.
Wow. I mean, so you've got, wow, that's fantastic. So you've
First
got a
time I felt the potentiality. So I always say that moment I felt that Indian food market has to expand. Without people who are drilling in my head that this is a low cuisine, I'm not going to listen to them. I see the potential here when I do it this way.
Okay, so that's a huge moment in the book. If you guys, as and when you pick it up, please pick it up. The James Beard House incident. We try to go through a lot. One last one before we get Silvery Antariksh on and go into AMAs. The Michelin star. Now, we don't understand this Michelin star concept, honestly, as Aam Aadmi trying to follow it. But it's got that charp. You hear Michelin star and you go 5-star general ki jaisa ban gaya. And immediately, there's no doubt about that. That it has. They have marketed the product very well. Little idea about how one actually achieves this? In your case?
How do you get a movie in Oscar?
The lobby, the fraternity has to vote, I think. The filmmakers and people in the business.
Yeah, same thing here. This is one of the most, for people like us who all their lives are dedicated to this, we only consider Michelin as a benchmark. I don't. You criticize it till the day you get it. You see the importance of it till you. I used to wonder that New York Times is never going to review me because I thought Indian food and all. I'm a manager for till now, since 2006, my kitchen brain is Andrew Blackmore, American guy. He's saying, you will never understand the power of New York Times until you get reviewed. And I never forget 30th March 2011, when they reviewed Junoon, 110 he tweeted, and for the next 3 months, the booking was closed.
Wow.
That influence can only happen from this very verified, very, there's a huge risk, but at the same time, the Michelin star for us as chefs is the only thing. Like for actors, if they say, nahi, main to us award mein zyada important manta, no. Till you'll get the Oscars, you will never consider anything else important. You will be immortalized on that stage. And this is not just America. This is worldwide. We are looking at that stage. It's such a treasured legacy of American arts and culture being represented through Oscars. Same thing is the French represented through the Michelin Guide. But it's also there's so many inspectors, and it's very difficult for Indians to get noticed in this. I know that.
And it's a fair process. There
are more than 30,000 inspectors. 30,000 inspectors, which don't even have their names. So you never know which is the Michelin inspector. They have to keep coming back to understand the consistency, to understand the quality, creativity, how you're going to reinvent yourself. It is such a huge benchmark for cooking, because that's the only one which everyone bows down to. Baki to nikalte rehte hain sponsor, to iska ye nikal lo, pani ka ye nikal lo, credit card ka ye nikal lo. Iska sabko pata hai ki ye kitna mushkil hai. And I knew it. My career is never going to change, and Indian food will never have that kind of, which we want, that nobody should be able to insult it, saying, aap kaun se Michelin stars ho. So, you have lived through all the sarcasm of working in Paris. So you understand ki aapko sab kuch chhod ke ye risk lena padega to get this star attached to your name.
But it's a fantastic achievement, and that's why you have books and you have TV shows and you're a household name across so many cultures, and an inspiration for a lot of people who, as you said, growing up, nobody thought of being let's glorify Bawarchi as a great concept. It's not an engineer or a lawyer, but today that's changed, and because you'll be in the forefront of that. Barkat is the name of the book. Please go and buy it. It's a heartfelt book. It's beautifully written. It's filled with anecdotes and incidents which have made him who he is today. And I think listening to him right now is the sincerity of the effort of living his life the way he has. And just you're lucky also, you're blessed, I would say, whether you like it or not, with talent and with karma. I know there were ups and downs, but at the end of the day, you're batting 100 not out. Let's call Silvery on. Silvery bhai. Antriksh, as you know, you Punjabis have these pet names. He's ridiculously called Silvery. Please call him that.
Sure.
Silver man, you're
Yes,
a budding chef. This is one of your gods who's come on as a budding chef. Show respect.
I've actually been to Bhutan, and beautiful place. It's a lot of this fantastic place to Bhutan is. But sir, how do you like sir, what do you think of the food in Bhutan? They have a different kind of rice, if I'm not wrong. Yeah.
So I have written a whole book on their cuisine. It's called Return to the Rivers.
Okay. Wow.
I've written an entire cooking book, and I had just gone bankrupt in America in 2008. This is right before the economy meltdown in US, right before President Obama became the president. There was a huge shift happening in the US economy, and all the catering companies, cooking school, restaurants, everything shut down. So I think I was looking for a place of rebirth, and it became really stressful living in here at that moment. So I just wanted to escape, and I met His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who said, now you're free, go and explore. And he's used a word which is amazing, that go and evolve. I really thought that was beautiful. Oh. So I said, where, His Holiness? He's saying, go to Himalayas, which better place? So that's where I went. That's why I went, because of him wanting me. And then later I went to Tibet to rediscover all his childhood memories and his food, where he came from. Amdo is the place where he came from. There's whole chapters of cooking from that place too.
Wow. So Silvery, you and I have to go to the Himalayas because we haven't rediscovered or discovered ourselves. Yeah. We have to do it fast.
Correct. Yeah.
Already in just 50 years, he's gone through so much up and down, and to reinvent himself from zero again after 2008. I don't know how many people have a story like that. You have one success, you come from wherever you come from and you do well, but to come, do well, go back and do well again. That's amazing.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. What kind of brands do you want to look out for in 2022? Hear great insights from Meeta Malhotra. She's the founder of The Hard Copy, and she joins Varun and Suchita on Think Fast. On GBCD, Farhad and Sunetro are celebrating their 100th episode. They reflect on the journey so far and what this podcast means to them. On Marathi Kirkitun, Dr. Rajiv and Manik Deshmukh discuss human intelligence. On The Habit Coach, Ashton is in conversation with the smile designer Dr. Real Gomez. They discuss various habits around oral hygiene and health. And on Cyrus Says His Cock and Bull episode this week, comedian Abhijit Ganguly, Cyrus and myself discuss Section 144 being back in effect in Mumbai, Steph Curry's popularity, and a whole lot more. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Go check out our YouTube channels. We go live on a whole bunch of different things. We have a number of different channels. You can find them on ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week: Cred, Bank of Baroda, CoinSwitch Kuber, Intel, and Oxfam India. Thank you for making this possible.
Follow me at Instagram and Twitter on Bored Brocha. I'm so bored, I need your help. I need your love. I need your touch. Okay, just follow me. Shall we go to the AMAs? I ran a little long with the questions, but I was fascinated with all the stories.
Sure, absolutely. Let's go to the AMAs. There are tons for Mr. Khanna. The first one comes from Bruce Wayne. He's one of our regular guests, regular listeners.
He's in Gotham, New York, yeah.
Yes. When he gets time in the morning, he's free, right? So he joins us.
Yeah.
So Bruce
He's
Wayne
at
asks,
work right now. Yeah, New York time.
he's at Wayne Industries. He asks, what was the genesis for the story The Last Color? What inspired you to then adapt the book on the silver screen as your directorial debut?
So I was, people might not know that I shoot all my books myself because hiring people became such a big pain. So I said, they can't be doing rocket science. So let me learn how to do photography. And I was interested always. So I was in Vrindavan shooting Holi for my book Utsav. And that is when I came out. I saw a lot of women who were dressed up in white and they were not allowed to touch color. It broke my heart and took me to a dark place of my childhood where I saw my neighbors or my family women who were not allowed to celebrate any festival or childbirth or Holi. That really broke my heart totally. And on my flight back to New York, I wrote a short story called Colorless, which never got published, thanks to New York Times Opinion and New Yorker. No answer. So I said, this is an amazing story. Let's expand it. So after my father's death, I went to Varanasi to hide. And that is where I met the girl who was a rope walker. And she really inspired me because she said she wants to go to school. That's why she's collecting money, because that's the only way she can beat the police wallas. I thought that was heartbreaking to me. And I couldn't find her. We did a whole search later. But then I wrote a novel. And when I took it to Mumbai to show to some of the production houses or movie makers, and they said, this is really not a story of bond between a widow and a girl who's 11 years old, a rope walker. So I said, okay. But when I showed the story to some of the people here in my circle, they went crazy. They think this should be a movie. You should make it. And I said, okay, can't be so difficult. And that's true. Wow. Because my grandmother used to say, Bhakti Sarva Shakti. There's nothing bigger than dedication and devotion. Everything else is less. So I said, let's follow that line of Bhakti Sarva Shakti. So I did the whole thing like a Bhakti. I got Neena Gupta, and we were eligible for Oscars in 2020 for the first movie. It was in more than 100 film festivals. And still I keep seeing that people sending me messages from Emirates. They watched it on this flights, and it's amazing. So that is what inspired me to bring change. And for the last 2 years, we see that the change it has brought in, even in the widow ashram and how we are supporting them, it's all because of the movie.
I hate these stories from the point of view of Silvery. One guy has so much talent. He's got enough with his normal main profession. Now he's a filmmaker, he's a writer, he's an influencer, and he's a TV anchor, judge, the works. So I feel that God is not being kind.
I got on TV by default. I was never interested in being in front of the camera. Never.
Safalta to mila. What can we do after that? Once success defines everything, can't do anything. You have to accept it. As you have accepted the odd failure that you had in your life, please, you can't do anything about the success either. It's stuck. Next AMA.
Okay, next one comes in from Shavik Bakchi. He says, Vikas, you have lived in the USA for so many years now, but how have you still not gotten an American accent?
Very good question.
My cousin went to Texas once for 2 weeks and they got an accent.
True. This is a very desi story, yaar.
Yeah.
So, what I realized was that, because I learned English primarily in America, and my coach, she just got married, so congrats to her. And there are a lot of people who put a lot of energy into me because I felt that there was a story inside me to tell. But the moment, because I can speak in perfect American, I can speak New Jersey accent, Texas accent, I can speak in Florida accents, Southern accents. I can.
Wow.
Because I have a very strong sense of observation because I'm a chef, so I can see the temperature and how things change.
Give us, listen, this is an accent show, yaar. Silvery, tu bhi kar do. Come on, give us a Texas accent, the Southern drawl.
So
just introduce yourself.
It reduces my link to my heritage. It makes my cooking also fake. it makes my story also fake. If I'm going to be using so much of American accent, and sometimes I will have to use it because when you're briefing in the kitchen, and sometimes you feel that, oh my, why am I saying these words like this? Because in a certain culture, you start speaking with the majority of the people the way they speak. So, पर मेरे को बहुत clear रखना था accent because बहुत planned था मेरे लिए, और I'd never want to sound where in an interview where my mom can't understand or recognize me. मुझे वो बहुत ध्यान से रखना पड़ा था. And I still am very conscious. People will be surprised. I still speak. I take English coaching classes. I still take accent reduction classes so that I don't move on that track where my accent becomes so unfamiliar or so fake. Because you will get caught even if you have the perfect accent. But पहले तो मैं English इतनी बोल भी नहीं सकता था. Now at least I have confidence to speak English. But since 2007, I have a full confidence that I can communicate in English. वही बहुत बड़ी अचीवमेंट थी मेरे लिए, एक्सेंट तो दूर की बात है.
और विकास जी, there may be की opposite effect इसमें कि in your kitchen in Junoon and all these other places, they are all Americans and foreigners are all speaking with a Punjabi accent. It's possible it went the other way. कभी-कभी that could also.
मैं सबको पंजाबी में गालियाँ सिखा देता हूँ.
Can you imagine? There's some guy from Texas in a kitchen in New York.
Saying bandit, okay.
Exactly. Perfect intonation.
Yeah.
Next.
Okay. Next one comes from Rake. Rake has asked, hi Vikas, what changes have you seen in food around Amritsar over the decades? And as a chef, can you explain why the heavy food, that is with the butter and the ghee, digests so well in Amritsar? He says, we'd overeat at a shop or restaurant and walk down the lane for 10 minutes and I'd be hungry again in Amritsar.
Amritsar में कहते हैं कि पानी ऐसे है. They always say that the water is like this. I don't know if it's true or not. But I also can digest everything there. I don't know why. And it's such a specialized, the change I'm seeing is that Amritsar, if you traveled as for food pilgrimage, not just for spirituality, you will note that shops serve just one dish, one kind of dish. There's so many shops who specialize and they serve just one kind of dish. But what's happening now, that the multi-cuisine restaurants are blossoming and a younger generation is less interested in the authentic cooking. So you see them totally leveraging towards the Western food, which I'm now going to say I'm against it or in favor of it. That's how metamorphosis happen. So I see that the lines outside pizza stores, but not lines outside kulcha's shops. So I feel that is a big change. That's a big change. I'm seeing it. I'm seeing a big change.
And butter and ghee is just the most beautiful things in the world. How can you not put that on everything? I think you should put it on people sometimes. You should make them easier to deal with. Yeah, wow. Kulcha. Sylvie, yaad hai?
Love kulchas.
Are you dreaming?
Yeah.
I don't even like kulchas. Amazing. Yeah.
Really?
They really pack it. Once you're in Punjab proper, you get the real taste. Yeah? They pack everything on properly. There's no holding back. Shall we? You can take a couple more. Yeah. Sorry.
Like I'm saying, like I love all kind of Indian breads and rotis and kulchas and naans. I literally will order just a plain butter naan and just have just the naan without any gravy and all, because I just love naan so much. Yeah,
but when you order it in, the naan loses its texture, yaar.
I know.
So
fair? I always ask them to make it extra crispy, so that by the time it reaches me, it'll become like a little less crispy.
From extra, it becomes less to crispy. Fair enough.
Exactly. Yes.
I don't know if Vikas is learning anything from delivery service here.
No, it's not.
I don't do delivery services. So
okay.
I understand that it's a challenge getting those 5 minutes space from the tandoor to the table. Delivery to मैंने कसम खाई, मैं नहीं करूँ, मैं नहीं गुजरा उस area में.
Especially for the breads. Chalo, let's take a couple more.
So how was the experience in the pandemic? How did Junoon manage in the pandemic? Was it very difficult?
I'm not there anymore, but what has happened is that pandemic was my biggest reason of writing Barkat, that I started Feed India. So last year on April 1st, I started this initiative called Feed India, which has fed more than 65 plus million meals around India. So my pandemic, I've never been busier in my life. I was locked in my apartment in New York, total quarantining and totally focused on working on this initiative called Feed India. I know the restaurant industry is shivering. I understand that. But I also opened on August 15th, I opened a restaurant in Dubai during the pandemic. I have never been so busy in my life the way I was during the pandemic. I had to push a lot of projects on the back burner, but still it was a crazy time emotionally. It was also showing my mom, rest I don't have much understanding of the world, just showing her that I'm standing for her country as she was watching me. So I did it just for her.
Best connector of all, unconditional emotional connect which you can't match. But I would say this, ki 65 million meals ka matlab kya hota hai? You can actually feed New Zealand for 2 weeks, full population. 15 days, one country taken care of, 65 million meals. Wow. That's amazing. Ouch. And counting.
But a lot of brands come on board to help us for that. So it is a big collective issue. So my pandemic was a different issue altogether. It was a dark space, but it was also very gratifying to be able to give a lending hand and to use all your resources, your strengths, your contacts, everything to be utilized in a single initiative. And that also done only on Twitter.
And non-profit. Oh my God, what happened? Is he okay?
He's a drama guy.
Huh? He's a drama queen. What?
He's a drama guy.
Yeah, he's a desi dog at heart. A little overacting. Yeah. Next.
All right. Next one comes from Girish Patil. He asked, Vikas, sir, could you please share your experience working with Gordon Ramsay and any interesting anecdotes that arose from that?
So I used to work in a restaurant on Fulton Street. That's near Wall Street. And I get a call from somebody at Fox who said that, we want you on the show with Gordon Ramsay because he feels that you can fit the bill of revamping an entire restaurant on national television. So that is when I felt that, I'm really short of being on national televisions because I really had no confidence to be on such a big stage and hold it. So working with Gordon, I went to meet him after my lunch service in that restaurant. It was called the Spice Route. I go to meet him and he says, would you be able to teach me some modern Indian cooking? I said, I finish around 9 o'clock. What time do you want me to come? He's saying, I finished my shoot around late night, but let's think about around 3 a.m. we'll start cooking. That really and this is the first person who said that, Gordon is actually the first human being on the planet who, when they started cooking and we started experimenting or what he wanted to show on television next day, he's saying, because it's totally different how life works, but you totally deserve a Michelin star. He's the first person who ever said that. So you're talking about a chef who actually uplifts others instead of just pushing them down, because at that time there was no status quo. He was in a position of privilege. Anything he says to me was actually, there was a one-way road. But anytime he sees a big project, I will always get a message from him. Bravo, brother. Great, dude. This is amazing what you pulled off. And yeah.
But yet his on-screen personality is a little bit aggressive and abrasive, what we get to see sometimes.
When the way he is in natural life, the way, you don't run so many restaurants and earn so many Michelin stars if you are the way people think he's on television. You can't run such a big empire. Nobody's going to be on your side. He really takes care of you. I'm not kidding. Every time he's coming to New York for a book tour or something, I'll always get a message that, let's spend some time together. And just understanding what am I doing, because I do so many projects and, most of the chefs are very tunnel visioned about hit the equation of success. They keep doing that. So he is one of the most encouraging person I have ever worked with. And I'm honest about that.
See, different side altogether. It's like us, Silvery. Nobody knows our true side. They don't realize that we can be psychopaths. The reverse is also possible. Yeah, next one. Right. One last one if you can. Yeah,
sure. Aditya Sharda has asked, Vikas, what's your signature dish? A dish that you would prepare as your ultimate feast?
It keeps changing. But if you look at my menu of Kinara, we did a dish which is difficult for us to remove from the menu. It's dahi ki kebab. Something so simple I had in UP. First time I had it in Banaras. And it's something so simple, which we revamped. My chef is there, Ashish. So what we do exactly the same thing. Hung yogurt, all the masalas, everything goes into it. And then instead of just pan-searing it, the way we do, kuch suji laga ke karta hai, koi, kuch bhi laga ke, koi flour laga ke karta hai, maida. So we said, let's wrap the dahi, freeze the dahi. So, that's the benefit of having so much of technology available to us. We make these little cylinders of dahi, we freeze them, and then we lightly wrap them in kanafa, which is again a noodle. Jaise semi hoti hai, waisa hota hai. And then we shallow fry it. Oh. And then we serve with haldi ki chutney. And, I have had people saying that, that they ordered 3 portions of it. And that was something they've never had tasted, something like that. So it was a mistake, but it has become one of the signatures for the restaurant in Dubai.
But is it vegetarian or non-veg kebab or veg kebab?
Veg. Dahi ka kebab.
Dahi ka kebab.
Very important because if Yogi Bhai wins again, he's going to make the whole place vegetarian, UP. So good you've invested in the veg kebabs at this point in the career. I think it makes a lot of sense. Vikas is not going to take any position there. He's going to carry on spreading love through food and not politics.
Yeah, one more great question has come in. Kamal Sethi has asked, what are VK's thoughts on meat substitutes and plant-based meats? Would he use them and provide them at his restaurants? And how difficult was it to convince foreigners on veg food, which isn't common there?
My biggest project, which I'm not supposed to talk about right now, for next year is a vegetarian restaurant, plant-based restaurant in New York. We have been experimenting so much with vegetarian, plant-based cooking that once I start releasing the dishes, it will be happening next year mid. You'll be surprised that it's a treasure. You will not miss meat in that restaurant, I promise you. I do feel a lot of people are taking a stand, but I'm doing it because, I was raised in a household which was primarily vegetarian. Except for first Sunday of the month, we never had meat. So, and eating out was not such a big culture at that time. So I never missed it. So, but a lot of more research has to be done to make the plant-based diet convincing that this is wholesome, because you're talking to primarily meat eaters, right? Western people. So I feel that for them, vegetables are always a side. If they're having baked roasted chicken, so there's a side of sweet potatoes or string beans or boiled carrots. That's a side. That's a vegetarian option for them. But I do feel the world is changing. There are a lot of people who are very strong voice. They're using their influence to talk about sustainability through vegetarianism. I enjoy both meat and vegetarian. But I feel there's a huge market emerging. And that is such a relevant question for today's time. We got to make it interesting to present it to people.
Okay, we'll say this. It's really late in New York and the chef is very busy. He's got miles to go before he actually sleeps, but we'll let him go here. But Barkat is the book. So folks, go out there and buy it. It's the Vikas Khanna experience. It's not just about his passion and his talent. It's more than that. It's about his humanity and who he is and where he came from, which he never loses sight of. I think that's the biggest lesson we get from the book. And the second thing is, as a good Desi, now that we've made contact with the legend, sir, to aage agar hum aapke restaurant ko visit kiya to, there's so many restaurants which have your name or touch. What kind of discount can we expect?
On me. Meal is on me.
Punjabi till the end. There you go. Because jokes apart, it's been lovely talking to you. Sorry to keep you up late at night, but with a lot of respect for you. A lot of respect. What a guy you are and what you've achieved.
Likewise.
The country is so proud and you keep our flag flying. All right. Cheers.
It was a pleasure.
Okay, catch us on any of the podcasting apps, please. We beg you, we need you. Send us your questions on Twitter on Cyrus Says In. Or you can email us, even if you're not female, on whatcyrussays@gmail.com.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood.
Get accustomed to womanhood.
Enjoy the experience of sisterhood.
Might get to wifehood.
Or not. Choose motherhood.
Or not. You'll learn to define your personhood.
Earn a livelihood.
Change the neighborhood.
And get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Natasha.
And me, Ayushi.
On a journey from station starting point.
To station, what now?
Next station, Pudin station. And hopefully, Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.
Do you wonder why China does the things that it does? Or want to know how we could improve online privacy? Or perhaps you're thinking about how we can kickstart India's economy? If you'd like to search for the answers to such questions, check out All Things Policy, a daily public policy podcast that covers everything from employment figures to aircraft carriers. Tune in from Monday to Friday for new episodes and fresh takes.